Hello everyone, welcome back to some Rimworld. Today I'm borrowing an idea from my good friend Hazzor, and that being to solve world hunger in the most disturbingly Rimworld way possible. Which means yes, we're going to be kidnapping people, genetically modifying them to vomit rats, and then spending the rest of the game finding creative ways to maximize the amount of time they spend vomiting. Now this sounds horrific, but it's all for the greater good, as during the process we'll be giving all of our excess food to our neighbors. But I want to take things a little further than my good friend, and use the power of science to find the most efficient way to produce rats from the bellies of the unfortunate. To make our lives easier, I started the game in a temperate forest. With plenty of resources and fertile soil, this should at least make the survival part a tad easier. After a quick look around the map, I eyed up a small pocket to our west that looked easily defendable and perfect for hiding all of our future crimes. The colonists got to work building out all of our early game needs, and after a couple of days, we had established a small base. The colonists themselves were Jacob, a police officer, Kim, a medieval lord, and Rat, a torturer. For the time being, we focused on planting rice, grinding through research, and dealing with our first raid. A single raider from the Venom Society who clearly did not respect our vision of a hungerless society. After Kim and Rat peppered him up nicely, Jacob finished the job with his knife and dumped the corpse in a nearby pond, which arguably might have been the best possible outcome, because the alternative was spending the rest of his days vomiting rats. Speaking of which, let's take a closer look at Rat, because at this point, I realize I may have made some mistakes. Thanks to his complex genetics and overall being a fat bastard, he was eating nearly 5 meals a day. For now, I had been surviving by having Kim hunt the local wildlife, and the generosity of Cassandra as she drop-podded me some chocolate. Alongside today's sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is the biggest and most epic free-to-play vehicle combat game ever created. Engage in large-scale multiplayer battles in locations across the globe, with tanks, ships, planes, and helicopters from the mid-20th century to the present day. Each vehicle is uniquely detailed, allowing you to precisely choose how you wish to ruin your opponent's day. Plus, you can play War Thunder however you want, whether that's camping in a bush and enjoying the stunning graphics and pretty explosions, dominating the skies in supersonic jets, or proclaim your superiority by dropping a nuclear bomb. Every vehicle is customizable with skins and decorations, so you too can ride into battle exactly as you envision. With the recent Hornet Sting update comes the new Su-30 and Fa-18 fighters and many more vehicles to dominate the battlefield with. The update also includes a significant overhaul to naval combat, graphical improvements to several maps, and a whole host of other changes. So what are you waiting for? Join War Thunder for free today on PC, PlayStation or Xbox by clicking my link down below. New and returning players who haven't played in 6 months will receive a bonus pack of 100,000 Silver Lions, a special Decorator Eagle of Valor, alongside premium vehicles and premium account time. So click my link down in the description and play War Thunder today. Plus, you can fight on mobile by downloading War Thunder Mobile, available for free on both iOS and Android using the link down below. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Now back to it. Starvation. Yes, we needed to get Rat reproducing as soon as possible, but that begs the question, how were we going to make him vomit? We could start by giving him food poisoning, but I didn't want to poison the whole colony with a bad batch of meals, so I started him off with eating raw meat. With only a 2% chance of making him ill, this didn't seem to work, so I moved on to the next best thing and got him eating corpses, and this actually worked. Moving him inside the kitchen, we didn't have to wait too long before the rats began to flow. To stop any from running off, I contained him to a small room where he could help himself to the corpses of his stomach content. However, let's just say he wasn't too happy with this arrangement. With the rat confined to the kitchen, it was time to move on to other matters. First, we had to deal with some beggars who wanted to buy their friend back for 41 silver. Imagine being kidnapped and your captor's only asking for 41 silver. That's rough. This was followed by a lone raider from the convicts, who suffered the same fate as the previous one, but this time instead of dumping her corpse in the pond, we fed it to Rat. Now I don't see anything wrong with this. In fact, I should be getting praise as I see this as the ultimate form of recycling. Her useless corpse is now being used to create new life, which will be used to feed existing life. Speaking of which, we had an offer from someone called Cohen. If we looked after her for 45 days, she'll join the colony. As long as she doesn't die. Moving on, with the additional strain on our food stockpile and Rat managing to avoid food poisoning, our food stockpiles began to dwindle. So I had to come up with a new plan to get him vomiting. So how about alcohol? If we can get Rat to consume enough beer, he'll eventually begin throwing up. However, we have to plant the hops, which take around 5 days to grow, brew them, and then leave them to ferment for another 6 days. And judging by how empty my food stockpiles were, I don't think I have 11 days. Luckily for us, a shaman trader rocked up with a small amount of beer we could use to trial our idea. Rat slammed down 5 beers, and ladies and gentlemen, it worked. Ah, there we go. He's throwing up rats because he's hammered. I am a genius. And because he's hammered, it's going to counteract the fact that he's puking rats. Even the shaman traders were impressed with this display and gave us our silver back. And it only got better when Rat developed food poisoning the following day. Hammered and suffering from food poisoning, our stockpile of rats began to grow. After 2 days of watching Kim struggle to shoot rats and then butchering them, we had a grand total of 400 rat meat. Not really groundbreaking, but a success nonetheless, and it proved that the concept can work. In fact, I'd like to say the colony around this point was in some kind of a golden age. With not having to worry too much about food production, we could crack on with researching xenogenetics, giving us access to the gene extractor and allowing us to harvest rats' genes. During this time, I also expanded our roster, starting with a refugee who had a burning passion in mining. Putting him to work digging steel for us, I also accepted a lone genius called Petra, who could turn the steel into gold. Nice. However, let's just say a few cracks started to form. With Rat doing nothing but drinking all day, his tolerance had slowly been creeping up. Having to consume more beer every day to keep up with rat production, this eventually led to an addiction, which is not good. In fact, even some of the rats were becoming addicted to alcohol because I couldn't kill the little bastards fast enough. But that's okay because I did the responsible thing and completely ignored the issue because we had something more exciting to do. With the gene extractor built, all we had to do was pluck the right gene from Rat. Placing him inside, we'd have to wait 11 hours for the machine to work, where he developed malnutrition and then gave us our first gene. Ah, brilliant. Intense UV sensitivity. Exactly what I was looking for. Unfortunately, we couldn't just throw him straight back into the extractor, as we have to wait 15 days for his genes to regrow, or it would kill him. So yeah, this could take a while. From here, let's say things quickly started to go downhill for us with the arrival of winter. Starting with our refugee who sadly departed us, which he timed perfectly as the colony was just about to run out of food because Rat had a massive alcohol tolerance. This meant it took well over 10 beers to even get him drunk. And with the winter setting in, we couldn't grow any more hops, so we eventually ran out of beer. As you can imagine, this was not good for us. The next few days I struggled with starvation, having to send Kim out to hunt all day while Rat cooked up meals in between mental breaks. In fact, we were struggling so much, Cohen starved just 4 days before waking up. Eventually, Rat got food poisoning, which knocked him down. With him being bedridden due to the combination of alcohol withdrawal and food poisoning, we didn't have to worry about his constant mental breaks. All we had to worry about now was keeping him topped up with dodgy food and vomiting rats. So I had Petra with her 2 cooking become Rat's new personal chef, and place down a nutrient paste dispenser for the rest of the colony. And ladies and gentlemen, things were starting to look up for us again. Until Rat was no longer bedridden, went crazy, punched Petra in the face, which made her go crazy, and betrayed the colony. To break the fight up, I let Petra beat the crap out of Rat, and then shot her. Which surprisingly worked. The next few days were spent convincing her to rejoin. Now I don't think this was really a hard sell, as it was either rejoin the colony, or vomit rats. Speaking of which, enough time had also passed so we could put Rat back into the gene extractor, and this granted us frail stomach. Frail stomach. Okay, that's not bad. Not bad. That's actually a pretty good one to take. Moving on, it seemed like a little bit of a waste having all this leather just lying around. So I put Rat to work making t-shirts which I could sell to traders for resources. However, instead of having a group of traders turn up, we had a group of hostile imps. Unfortunately for them, they brought bows to a gunfight. After shooting the first one, I sent Rat in with a knife who knocked down the second, giving us our first prisoner of the game. Lucky for him, I hadn't extracted the rat vomit gene yet, so for now, the only thing I could offer him was a little bit of slavery. He wasn't particularly good at anything, but it was nice to have someone who could run around and do all the hauling and cleaning. Plus, he had 0 cooking, so he was perfect for being Rat's new personal cook. The next day, we had another refugee rock up, and with a 13 in plants, I put her to work planting the next batch of hops. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Rat was well over his addiction at this point, and I just wanted to have some booze in case we ran out of food. Think of booze as like the emergency smashed glass for food production if we ever run out again. The next few days I could only sum up with a simple phrase. Fuck this game. Starting with this. Did I seriously just get a Bulk's Good Trader and a solar flare at the same time? What the fuck? Continuing my string of bad luck, the refugee I took in decided to betray me. Now apparently this was her whole plan all along. Yeah, really good plan there. As I was getting over the heartbreaking betrayal, a group of beggars just happened to rock up that afternoon. Oh, no. Beggars are rocking up and they see Cade. You guys don't understand what just happened in my colony. So, not trusting outsiders anymore. I made sure they wouldn't cause any issues. With Hump safely contained and his friend dumped in the pond, I began the recruitment process, and this must have upset our current slave, as he made a break for it. Trying to slow him down, I ordered Jacob to fire a single shot. And well, let's just say I don't think he's ever going to run again. I have to admit, it was around day 80 where I was starting to lose faith. So far, the colony had barely grown, and the only genes I had extracted were either intense UV sensitivity, come on, or frail stomachs. I know my friend Hazzor had the same issues, and yes, the smart idea would have been to make a xenotype with just rat vomit. But that wouldn't have been very fun. Sensing my frustration, Cassandra sent me a gift in the form of a transport pod. Inside was a rat called Grain. Oh my god! Someone just fell from the sky and they've got the same genes! They're a rat! Kim, get that man. No, don't strip him. Kim, rescue him. Since Grain was part of another faction, I was 99% certain he was going to leave as soon as he recovered. This was not going to happen, and as soon as he tried to leave, I arrested him and then put him straight into the gene extractor, where he gave me the smaller gene. Yeah, I won't lie, this kind of annoyed me, but I was still relieved to have 2 rats in the colony producing us food, putting us one step closer to achieving our goals of solving world hunger. The problem we had now, though, was we were suffering from our own success. By producing too many rats, the little bastards were consuming my food that I had stockpiled in the freezer. But I had an idea, and that was to weaponize it. By building a couple of additional coolers, I could lower the temperature all the way down to minus 70 degrees Celsius. Over time, the rats would slowly develop frostbite and die. Now, I know this sounds horrific, but the positives were, this allowed Kim to focus all of her time dealing with the rats that Grain produced. And things were once again starting to look pretty good for us. Until a fairly large raid from the convicts arrived, who brought grenades. One of the grenades landed right next to Rat and blew the poor guy's leg off. A couple of days later, another group of convicts rocked up. I was annoyed at first, as I was still recovering from the last raid, until I discovered they were all rats. And if I could just capture one of them, I was going to be a very happy man. Right, we don't kill all of them. We're going to kill all of them, aren't we? They slowly funneled into my defenses, and we managed to knock down 2 of them, John and Baker. Capturing both of them, we once again doubled our output of rats and our chances of getting the rat vomit gene. Anyway, with all these prisoners, I think it was time to build a proper prison block, which could also specialize in rat production. While Jacob was digging out the cell block, the prisoners tried to make a break for it. During the struggle, Kim managed to gun down John, meaning we were back down to 3 rats. Not the end of the world, but it was still annoying nonetheless. His body was chucked in the pond alongside all the other rats we shot earlier. And this did make me a little bit sad, seeing all these dead rats that could have been used to help us achieve our goal. With the colony's expansion into the mountains, it was inevitable that I was going to have to deal with an infestation, which of course had a mega spider, and of course in a single attack, ripped off Jacob's leg, who limped away and began playing chess instead of seeking medical attention. With 2 colonists now limping about on one leg, it was probably time to get prosthetics researched. But with no medicine, I was unable to do any of the operations. Until finally, a Bulk's Good Trader arrived. Bulk's Good Trader! Oh, never mold lubricant! My beloved! Oh yeah, look at all those resources. Right, we can now give Jacob a leg. With his new prosthetic leg, Jacob was able to finish the cell block. The design was fairly simple. 4 bedrooms attached to a rec room, with a room above containing 5 coolers. It was simple. We'd contain the 3 of them inside until they had thrown up enough rats. Once rat numbers were sufficient, we'd move them outside and turn the freezers on. However, this didn't work. The fire coolers were not enough to keep the whole block at a low enough temperature to kill them, so we were going to have to try something else. How about heat? Instead of freezing them, we'd slowly cook them. This might actually be better because freezing them, you have to deal with frostbite, which means less meat, and since they bleed everywhere, there was going to be a lot of mess. But if we burn them, the only thing we have to worry about is not making it so hot that they go up in flames. After installing the heaters and setting them to a slightly uncomfortable 93 degrees Celsius, we sat back and watched the rats slowly succumb to heat stroke. Now you could argue this was all pointless and we should have just let the rats starve. But because they come out staggered, as soon as one rat dies, the rest rush over and devour the corpse. After a couple of runs with this method, it proved a little too effective. Oh yeah, this ain't good. That's a lot of decomposing rats. But I did accumulate over 3,000 rat meat from all the ones I did butcher. Furthermore, Project Heat did have some other flaws. The first being infestations. But that wasn't too much of a problem because all my colonists now had chain shotguns. The second issue was that whenever a warden came to deliver food, the rats would normally beat the prisoners to their meals, which, as you can imagine, was a little bit of a problem. So how are we going to overcome this issue? Well, simply by giving them the old peg leg removal treatment. This does mean that someone has to feed them, however the benefits are that the prisoners won't starve to death. Plus, they won't be able to rebel because, well, they've got no legs. With the rat meat production in full force, it was time to make some friends. I started with loading up both rat meat and t-shirts into transport pods and firing them off to anyone that didn't like us. Slowly, we managed to turn those who wanted us dead into friends, which had the negative effect of the next few raids only being mechanoids. They weren't too much of a problem to deal with, nor did it really matter because I still hadn't rolled the rat vomit gene. Even with 3 rats in the colony, I still couldn't roll that fucking gene. We were stuck on 3 rats for a while until we had another raid from the convicts, and we captured Pace. This was followed up by a slaver who just happened to have a rat as a slave, which of course I bought, and little did he know, he now had a greater purpose. In fact, he was to be the chosen one, because on day 200, he gave us the rat vomit gene. Rat vomit! Oh my god! We've finally done it! Holy crap! I can actually play the game. With the rat vomit gene finally in my possession, I could now rely on more than just a rat xenotype to produce us food. Not that we really needed it at this point, but I wanted more. This came in the form of a raider who was unlucky enough to survive a taser and then multiple shotgun rounds to the face. After patching him up, we inserted the rat vomit gene into him and got to work feeding him some poisoned food. After throwing up his first batch, he immediately went berserk and started killing his stomach contents, which, to be fair, very understandable. The following day, we were hit with another raid. Nothing really too exciting happened. They walked in, got shot in the face, and then ran. However, before this raid, I had given Jacob 2 bionic legs. With his taser in hand, he managed to catch up with one of the retreating raiders and tased him until the sun came up. I'm not kidding. For 7 hours, I tased this man until he finally fell over. This is so stupid. I've given him permanent brain damage from tasing him over and over again. Oh no. With another raider captured, we fixed the poor guy up and added him to the production line. But these raids were just one-offs. As I had previously stated, a lot of the raids were now just mechanoids. So I needed to come up with a more reliable way to gather new subjects. And ladies and gentlemen, I think I had just the plan. The last few days, I had Jacob construct a fake hotel. With basic rooms, a fake restaurant, and a shop where they could buy only t-shirts, we lured guests over from all the factions I had become friendly with. Now, before you go down in the comments and start calling me a bad human being, the people I recruited were only to help butcher and haul rats. I wouldn't dream of setting up this hotel to just recruit people, immediately imprison them, and then force them to produce rats. Right? Well, that was a lie. I in fact did do that, and over the course of the next couple of hours, I recruited up to 10 rat-producing prisoners. At this point, I was ready to call this experiment a success. We had mountains of fresh rat meat, which I was donating to all the nearby factions, but there was still one thing I needed to test. According to the wiki, if someone had a special type of stomach, they could be made to throw up if they were hit by an EMP. So I sent Kim off in a little shuttle to browse the wares of nearby factions until she came across a sterilizing stomach. When she returned, I installed it into one of the prisoners, and ladies and gentlemen, we had created something truly remarkable. It doesn't even damage him. We could do this forever. With only one prisoner, I had created an infinite cycle of free food. Everything I had done up to this point was now redundant, because it turns out all I needed was a stomach implant, some EMP grenades, and we could solve world hunger. And only one person had to suffer. One person with brain damage, that is. Upon discovering this method, I butchered the rest of the prisoners, gave them a proper burial for their sacrifice, and got to work. In the end, we made a load of money selling rat meat to the nearby factions, and we're pretty much playing the game on God mode. What? Did you think I was going to solve world hunger for free? Anyway, on that note, I think we were pretty much done here. I want to thank you all for watching. Thank you to my Patreons and channel members for throwing money at me. And thank you again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Remember to click my link down in the description for a free bonus pack if you're new or haven't played in over 6 months. And as always, new videos every